The elevator jerked to a stop, and she whispered, "I've always seen you differently." My ex waited floors below, probably scrolling her phone, completely unaware that her mom, Diane, had just flipped my entire world upside down. The dim emergency light flickered, casting jagged shadows across her face, her eyes locked on mine with a raw, almost desperate intensity that made my breath catch in my throat. We were stuck between floors in this creaky old office building, the air thick and stale, the walls pressing in too close, the low hum of the stalled machinery pulsing like a heartbeat in the silence. I was 24, just a guy trying to piece my life back together after a messy breakup, and Diane was in her late 40s, the warm, put-together mom who'd once welcomed me into her family with open arms and home-cooked meals. We'd been catching up, laughing about old times at a charity event, but now her words hung heavy in the air, laced with something I couldn't quite pin down, longing, regret, maybe something deeper. My heart pounded, a chaotic mix of shock, guilt, and, damn it, a spark I didn't want to admit, like her confession had reached into some buried part of me and flipped a switch I'd kept off since the breakup. My ex, Emily, was downstairs, waiting to drive her mom home, and here I was, trapped in this metal box with Diane, her words pulling me into a secret I wasn't ready to hold. What did she mean by differently? Was this just a fleeting moment, a slip of the tongue, or something she'd been carrying for years? And why did part of me, that stupid, reckless part, feel a thrill I couldn't shake, like being seen by her in this way meant something dangerous, something real, something I wasn't supposed to feel? I'm not gonna lie, that moment shook me to my core, like the ground had dropped out from under me. Diane was always the steady one, making lasagna when I'd visit Emily, asking about my job, my dreams, always with that warm smile that made you feel like you were home, like you belonged. She'd been the kind of mom who'd sit at the kitchen table with us, listening to our stories, laughing at my dumb jokes, making me feel like part of their family. But that whisper in the elevator wasn't maternal, wasn't anything like the Diane I thought I knew. It was personal, too personal, and it turned everything, her, Emily, myself, upside down. I was just trying to move on, to rebuild after Emily and I crashed and burned 6 months ago, a breakup that left me raw, questioning everything. Now her mom had dropped this bomb, and I was stuck in this metal cage with nowhere to run, no way to unhear her words. I wanted to slam the emergency button, to force the doors open, to pretend it never happened, but the elevator was dead, and her confession kept echoing in my head, making my thoughts spin, making me question every moment I'd ever spent with her back when I was Emily's boyfriend. Had I done something to invite this? Had I been too open, too comfortable in their home? The guilt hit like a freight train, but so did that spark, that dangerous pull, and I hated myself for feeling it, for not shutting it down right there. My name's Ryan, and I've always been the guy who tries to do the right thing, even when it's messy, even when it hurts. I grew up in a Chicago suburb, in a house where tension hung thicker than the air. My dad was a mechanic, always working late, his hands stained with grease, his temper short. My mom was a school secretary, always stressed, always juggling bills and arguments. I was the kid who kept my head down, stayed out of the way, got decent grades, and worked part-time at a hardware store to save for college. I wasn't a star, wasn't the guy who stood out, just a guy who showed up, put in the work, and hoped it was enough. College was my escape, my chance to be more than the kid from a loud, broken house. That's where I met Emily, sophomore year, in a psych class. She was smart, funny, the kind of person who could make a lecture hall feel like a coffee shop, and we clicked fast, late-night talks, shared playlists, road trips to nowhere. She was my first real love, the kind that makes you believe in stupid, hopeful things. Her mom, Diane, was part of that world. She'd have us over for dinner, ask about my marketing major, tell stories about her own college days, make me feel like I was more than just Emily's boyfriend, like I mattered. I liked her, thought she was great, warm, kind, the kind of mom you wished you had. But she was Emily's mom, untouchable, off limits. When Emily and I broke up, messy, emotional, over fights that started small but grew into something we couldn't fix, I thought that was the end of it. I moved on, got a job at a small marketing firm, tried to build a new life, to forget the ache of losing her. Running into Diane at that charity event was a surprise, a bittersweet jolt of nostalgia, but I didn't think it would be more than a quick hello, a catch-up with someone from a past I'd left behind. Until that elevator stopped, and everything changed. The event was for a local food bank, held in an old office building downtown, all chipped paint and creaky floors. I was there for work, helping set up promo materials, banners, flyers, the usual grunt work for a junior marketer. Diane was volunteering, her usual warm self, chatting with donors, organizing donation bins, her laugh carrying across the room. We ran into each other near the snack table, and it felt easy, familiar, like slipping back into a memory. We talked about work, her volunteer projects, my job, even touched on the breakup, not deep, just enough to acknowledge it. She asked how I was holding up, her eyes kind, and I shrugged, said I was fine, keeping it light. When it was time to leave, we ended up heading to the parking garage together, stepping into that ancient elevator, joking about how it looked like it hadn't been serviced since the 80s. Then it lurched, the lights dimmed to a sickly yellow, and we were stuck, the panel dead, the air heavy. At first, it was normal, awkward laughs, complaints about old buildings, me jabbing the buttons like that'd do anything. But then Diane got quiet, her eyes distant, her hands fidgeting with her scarf. That's when she said it, her voice low, trembling, like she'd been holding it in for years, "I've always seen you differently." My stomach dropped, my mind scrambling to make sense of it, my hands fumbling with my phone for a signal that wasn't there, anything to break the weight of her words. Those first minutes were pure torture. I pressed the emergency button over and over, but it just buzzed uselessly, the panel as dead as my nerves. Diane was calm, too calm, sitting on the elevator floor, her knees pulled up, her eyes watching me like she was waiting for something. "I didn't mean to scare you, Ryan," she said, her voice soft but heavy, like it carried years of unsaid things. "It's just, you were always different. Not like Emily's other boyfriends. You saw me, too, didn't you?" I stared at the wall, my heart hammering, my mouth dry, trying to process what she was saying. Was she saying she'd felt this way back then, when I was dating her daughter, sitting at their kitchen table, eating her casseroles? I muttered something about needing to get out, my hands sweaty, my voice shaky, but her presence was overwhelming, her words sinking deeper with every second we were trapped. I thought of Emily, downstairs, waiting, probably annoyed we were taking so long, and the guilt hit like a wave, like I'd betrayed her just by being in this elevator, just by hearing this confession. But that spark, that stupid, dangerous spark, was there, flickering in the dark, making me wonder what she saw in me, why she'd risk saying this now, why her words made me feel something I wasn't supposed to feel. The elevator stayed stuck for hours, the air getting thicker, the silence louder, broken only by the hum of the machinery and our uneven breaths. Diane kept talking, her voice low, spilling things I wasn't ready for, how she'd felt invisible in her marriage, how her husband worked long hours, how talking to me back then, when I'd come over for dinner or holidays, made her feel alive, seen, like she was more than just Emily's mom. She talked about the little moments, me helping with dishes, joking about her bad taste in music, listening to her stories, and how they'd meant more to her than I'd realized. I listened, frozen, my back against the wall, not knowing what to say, not wanting to encourage her but not shutting her down either. I kept thinking about Emily, about the breakup, about how I'd spent months trying to erase her from my life, and now her mom was here, pulling me back into that world with words I couldn't unhear. I wanted to be angry, to tell her she was wrong, that this was crazy, but part of me, that reckless, shameful part, was curious, flattered even, and I hated myself for it. I kept asking myself, had I missed something back then? Had I been too open, too comfortable in their home, laughing with Diane, sharing stories? Had I given her some signal I didn't mean to? When the elevator finally jolted back to life, the doors creaking open to a crowd of maintenance workers and Emily's worried face, I bolted, mumbling something about needing air, my head spinning, Diane's eyes burning into my back as I walked away, her words clinging to me like damp clothes. Back in my apartment, I thought distance would fix it, that I could shove her confession into a box and lock it away, go back to my life. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking on extra projects, anything to keep my mind busy. But Diane didn't let it go. A few days later, my phone buzzed late at night, an unknown number. "Can we talk, Ryan?" Just once. My heart stopped, my hands shaky as I stared at the screen, knowing it was her, even without a name. I didn't reply, just sat there, my thumb hovering over the delete button, the guilt and curiosity wrestling inside me. I wanted to block her, to shut it down, but I didn't, and I hate myself for that hesitation. Why? Was I scared of hurting her? Was I curious about what she'd say next? Or was I just too weak to do the right thing? More texts came, always late, always vague but heavy, like a weight I couldn't shake. I meant what I said in there. You felt something too, didn't you? I know it's wrong, but it's real. I'd delete them, one after another, but they stayed in my head, each one a reminder of that elevator, that whisper, that spark I couldn't kill. Seeing Emily around town made it unbearable. We'd run into each other sometimes, at a coffee shop, a grocery store, the gym, and she'd smile, ask how I was, her voice light, oblivious to what her mom had said. Every time, I felt like a traitor, like I was hiding something that could hurt her family, destroy the memories we'd had. I started avoiding places I knew she'd be, taking longer routes to work, skipping my usual coffee shop, staying late at the office, anything to keep from facing her, from facing the secret I was carrying. The guilt was relentless, a constant pressure in my chest, but so was that spark, that dangerous pull that kept me up at night. I'd lie awake, replaying that elevator, Diane's words, the way her eyes had held mine, steady and searching. Had I missed something back when I was with Emily? Had I been too open, too comfortable at their house, sitting at their table, laughing with Diane over her terrible taste in 80s music? I thought about all the dinners, the holidays, the times she'd asked about my life, my dreams, listened like she really cared. Were those moments more than I'd thought? Had she been waiting, watching, all that time, seeing something in me I didn't see myself? The questions ate at me, gnawing at my sense of self, making me doubt my choices, my ability to be the guy who does the right thing. I wanted to tell Emily, to come clean, to get it off my chest, but how could I? "Hey, your mom said something weird when we were stuck in an elevator." It sounded insane, and I was terrified she'd think I'd encouraged it, that I'd wanted it, that I'd somehow invited this mess. The idea of her looking at me with hurt, with betrayal, was too much. I couldn't risk it, couldn't risk her thinking I was that kind of guy. The tension followed me everywhere, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Work became my escape, but even there, I wasn't safe from my own head. I'd be designing a flyer or sitting in a meeting, and Diane's words would creep in, her voice soft but heavy, "I've always seen you differently." I'd push it away, focus on my screen, but it was there, lingering, making me question everything. Had I been too friendly back then, too eager to fit into their family? Had I given her some signal, some reason to think I saw her that way? I started replaying every interaction, every moment at their house: Thanksgiving, when she'd hugged me for helping with dishes; Christmas, when she'd given me a scarf she'd knitted, her smile warm; late-night talks when Emily was asleep, and I'd stayed up talking to Diane about life, about feeling lost. Were those moments loaded for her? Had I been blind to something she was feeling even then? The guilt was suffocating, like I'd betrayed Emily just by existing, just by being the guy Diane chose to confide in. But that spark, that shameful, dangerous spark, kept flickering, making me wonder what it would be like to say yes, to lean into it, to see what she saw in me. I hated myself for it, hated that I couldn't just shut it off, that part of me was curious, drawn to the danger, to the idea that someone like Diane could see me as more than just Ryan, the guy who tries to do the right thing. Things got worse a month later, at another charity event. I didn't know Diane would be there, but I should have guessed. She was always volunteering, always showing up for causes, her smile lighting up rooms. I saw her across the crowded banquet hall, helping with donation bins, and my stomach dropped, my hands clammy. I stuck to the edges of the room, setting up posters, keeping my head down, but I could feel her presence, like a pull I couldn't ignore. I told myself to leave early, to avoid her, but she found me later, near the coat check, away from the crowd. "Ryan, I can't stop thinking about that night," she said, her voice low, her eyes searching mine, full of something raw, something pleading. It was real, wasn't it? What we felt in there. My hands shook, my throat tight, and I forced my voice to stay steady. "Diane, no. This has to stop. Emily doesn't deserve this, and neither do you." She flinched, tears welling in her eyes, but she nodded, stepping back, her hands twisting her scarf. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and walked away, leaving me standing there, the guilt crashing over me like a tidal wave, that spark still flickering, bright and dangerous, making me question everything: who I was, what I was capable of, what I really wanted deep down. I couldn't keep living like this, carrying this secret, dodging her, lying to myself, pretending I could outrun the weight of it. I knew I had to end it, to shut it down for good, before it destroyed everything: my peace, my memories of Emily, my sense of who I was. So, a week later, I called her, my hands sweaty, my voice as steady as I could make it. "We need to talk," I said, and we agreed to meet at a diner far from town, a quiet place where no one would know us, where we could talk without eyes on us. She showed up looking tired, her hair in a messy bun, her eyes red, like she hadn't slept in days. "I'm sorry," she said before I could even sit down, her voice breaking, her hands fidgeting with a napkin. "I know I crossed a line, Ryan. I know it's wrong. You made me feel something I haven't felt in years, like I was more than just Emily's mom, more than a wife stuck in a routine." Her words hit hard, and for a moment, I saw her not as Emily's mom, not as the woman who dropped this bomb, but as a person, lonely, lost, reaching for something to hold on to. But that spark flared, and I pushed it down, hard, knowing I couldn't let it win. "Diane, you can't keep texting me," I said, my voice firm, though inside I was crumbling. "This isn't right. For Emily, for your family, for me. It has to stop." She nodded, tears spilling over, her hands shredding the napkin into tiny pieces. "I know," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'll stop. I promise." I left the diner, feeling lighter but not free, like I'd dodged a bullet but was still bleeding, still carrying the weight of that elevator, that confession, that moment I couldn't undo. The text stopped after that, and I tried to move on, to throw myself into work, into routine, into being the guy I was before that night. I took on extra hours at the firm, stayed late designing campaigns, anything to keep my mind off Diane, off the secret I was still carrying. But it wasn't the same. Every time I saw Emily, at a coffee shop, passing by on the street, her smile bright and unaware, I felt like a fraud, like I was hiding something that could shatter her, her family, the memories we'd shared. I'd smile back, make small talk, but inside, I was screaming, the guilt eating me alive, the spark still there, buried but not gone. I started avoiding more places, changing my routes, skipping the gym, staying in my apartment with the blinds drawn, like I could hide from the truth. Work was my only escape, but even there, I wasn't safe from my own head. I'd be editing a video or writing copy, and Diane's words would creep in, her voice soft but heavy, "I've always seen you differently." I'd shake it off, focus on the screen, but it was there, lingering, making me doubt myself, my choices, my ability to be the person I thought I was. I kept going back to those days with Emily, to the time before the breakup, trying to find the moment where I might have missed something, where Diane's feelings might have started. I remembered the little things, her asking about my plans after college, listening when I talked about feeling lost, her hand on my shoulder when I helped with chores. Were those moments loaded for her? Had I been too naive, too trusting, thinking it was just a mom being kind? I started questioning everything, every smile, every conversation, wondering if I'd been blind to signals, if I'd somehow invited this without knowing. The guilt was a constant ache, like I'd betrayed Emily just by being in that elevator, just by not stopping Diane the second she spoke. But that spark, that dangerous, shameful spark, kept flickering, making me wonder what it would have been like to lean into it, to see what she saw in me, to cross that line and feel what she felt. I hated myself for those thoughts, hated that I couldn't just shut them off, that part of me was drawn to the danger, to the idea that someone like Diane could see me as more than just Ryan, the guy who tries to be good. It's been weeks since that diner meeting, and I'm still trying to rebuild, to be the person I was before that elevator, before Diane's words changed everything. I'm still at the firm, still working, still trying to move forward, but it's different now. Every time I think of Emily, of her family, I feel that weight, that secret I'm carrying, even if Diane's gone quiet. I don't know if she's moved on, if she meant her promise to stop, if she's still carrying that spark she talked about. I don't ask, don't want to know. I'm trying to focus on my life, on my job, on being the guy who does the right thing, but it's hard. That moment in the elevator, her whisper, her eyes, they're still with me, a scar I can't shake, a reminder of how close I came to crossing a line I couldn't come back from. I keep telling myself I did the right thing, shutting it down, walking away, but part of me wonders, part of me doubts, and that's the part that scares me most. Here's the twist, though, the thing that keeps me up at night, the thing I can't let go of. Last week, I was going through my jacket, the one I wore that night at the charity event, looking for my keys, when I found a folded note tucked deep in the pocket, hidden under some loose change. It was in Diane's handwriting, dated the day of the elevator. "You're more than Emily's ex, Ryan. You're my what if." I don't know how it got there, don't know when she slipped it in, don't remember a moment when she could have done it without me noticing. But it was real, her words staring up at me, proof that it wasn't just a moment, that she saw something in me I can't see, something more than the guy who tries to do the right thing. I stood there, the note in my hand, my heart racing, that spark flaring up again, bright and dangerous, before I crumpled it and threw it in the trash. But it's still there, in my head, in my chest, that curiosity, that question of what could have been, buried under layers of guilt and shame, making me wonder who I am, what I'm capable of, what it means to be seen like that. Would you cross lines in a moment of trapped honesty? Would you carry a secret that could break a family? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. And if this story hit you, share it with someone who's felt the weight of a moment they couldn't undo.